Everyone, welcome to another week. You're in week 12, and for week 12, we're just practicing more of our final research paper writing, and I'm going to go over some more elements of a final research paper. Some other cool stuff too, like how you can actually use the stuff you're doing in this class to further your career and all that jazz. We're going to go over that too a little later. So for this first video, I want to talk more about awesome paper fives and kind of what was awesome in these papers and what wasn't. You've seen this example before. I used it last week, but there's something I didn't point out last week that I want you to focus on this week. So all y'all have your drafts, right? You have them, you've made them, you've had them peer reviewed, and you've probably combed over them once, and now you're waiting for me to get back to you. Well, there's a reason I'm waiting so long to get my comments back to you. I don't want you just doing what I say and then not revising anymore and saying, oh, I should get an A because I just did what she says. I want you to really think about it a lot, and then also use my comments as well as other people's comments and your own thinking about it a lot as a revision as you revise. So that's like 3 things flying at you in order for revision: me, yourself, and another person, another peer. All right. So this week then, what I want you to think about as you're revising your papers for the final, what I want you to think about is how you actually organize your evidence in the CSE paragraphs. We've talked a lot about introductions. We've talked a lot about how to create a good thesis statement. We've talked a lot about how to create logical claims under that thesis statement and the rules of both thesis and claims. But what we haven't, and we've talked a lot about CSE form, like what it is, and then all the stuff within the CSE paragraph, if you remember last week, and the checklist that I had up on the screen, all the stuff that you have to have for good CSE form. It's like a book you could write. It actually is a whole class, right? You're taking it about it. But what we haven't talked about yet is something so basic that so many people skip over. And it involves that underlying structure. So like CSE gives your paper structure, your thesis, good thesis and claims give your paper structure, how you do all that checklist stuff gives your paper structure. But beyond that, something that I can't map for you in a checklist is how you introduce your evidence. And so this I have up again, you saw this last week, is an example of a student that does a really good job introducing evidence. Okay, so let's talk about this a little more. Let's say you do a great job with everything on that checklist. You do authorial attribution anytime you see an opinion. You are really doing the dance well. You're doing your in-text citations well. You're doing every single thing you learned in this class, and you're hitting it to the moon. Still missing something, still not good enough. You have to introduce the evidence itself in some kind of organized, logical manner. So you have your claims in an organized, logical manner. We already know that because we talked about that. But how the facts, all the opinions that you are finding, you can't just like put them inside of an imaginary dump truck and then drop them off at the foot of the claim in your papers and say that's good enough. So people organize this through a couple different means. There's some common ways to do it. One of them is by timeline, right? We're very time structured people. So organizing it by time, and that's what this example is. Now, this example that you read last week is about Title IX, and it's saying that Title IX is doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's getting women involved in sports. But what you might not have noticed that was super intelligent that the student did was they have a bunch of facts, but they introduce their facts according to level of female participation. They start out with elementary schools, right here, and they move in to high school and give us all the facts that they found about increased female participation in high school. Then this student moved into the college realm and then the professional realm. So are your facts organized in a logical manner? Do your facts make sense? This is a really good time, and probably the first thing you should do this week, week 12, is pull out your paper and see if you have some underlying logic to how you're presenting all this super awesome information to prove your claim true. So time is one of the logical structures that people use, but it's not the only logical structure people use. In fact, if you go to the content, I list some other logical structures that are pretty common besides time. So another one is organizing it from opposing viewpoint to your viewpoint or vice versa. So maybe your viewpoint first and then all the opposition first. But usually you put the opposition first so then you can prove them wrong, right? We've talked about this a bit. This is called refutation when you organize it like this, refutation form. So let's look at an example of refutation form. I have it here and I'll bring up the one with colors because it'll be easier to see. So you can organize it by time, you can organize it by argument. You have all these facts, all this information that you're dumping on your reader, but you, and I can't map this because I don't know what's the best for you, but you have to figure out how to put that evidence in some sort of logical order. That's going to shine through as your reader reads. It's like good bone structure, right? High cheekbones. It's having good bone structure in your argument. So even though it's not blatantly stated, your reader feels it as they're reading. It feels better because it makes more sense in their brain. Okay, so this is refutation form. It's about gun control, fact or fiction. And so let's look at one of the student CSE paragraphs. Now, this is by no means an A paper. This is a real student example. It's just meant to show you the form, the refutation form itself. It does have some good evidence in here, but there's a lot wrong with it too that I won't go over. So let's read the claim. One of the primary reasons that people own guns is self-defense. Research has indicated that there are 120 million privately owned guns in America, and that 75% of gun owners say that self-defense is at least part of the reason for owning a gun. However, several studies suggest, okay, so they talked about the opposing viewpoint, self-defense, didn't give it enough ink, probably should have really convinced us, like debate and mock trial, where you're pretending to be the other lawyer arguing for the other side, then you flip, right? It's about how well you can argue. Really given the other side more ink, like maybe name some anecdotal examples of people who saved their own lives through owning a gun, then switched. However, several studies suggest that not only are guns not effective as a means of self-defense, but they often result in accidents involving gun owners. It has been estimated that only 1 in 1,000 home burglaries are foiled by the victim's use of a firearm. On the other hand, the New England Journal of Medicine reported that for every justified homicide in a home, there are 1.3 accidental deaths, right? This is pretty good evidence. Please note, the New England Journal of Medicine is in italics. Last week you learned that the publication is in italics. The publication is in italics. So like the New England Journal of Medicine or like the name of the entire website. You also listed in italics in your actual papers, right? So you need to scan your papers and make sure that the names of the articles are in quotes, because article names are in quotes, or the pages of websites are in quotes, but the name where it was published, like the actual name, like Time Magazine, is in italics. So a lot of you are doing that wrong. Make sure you're doing it right. Then, the more to the point of this video, you need to rearrange your evidence in some logical order. I don't care if it's refutation. I don't care if it was timeline-wise. How are you going to organize your evidence? There are other ways to organize it besides timeline and refutation. You can also organize it by study. So a lot of you are reviewing a ton of studies to prove your thesis true and your claims true. So the studies might do similar methodologies, right? So if you're writing on Common Core and you're trying to prove that Common Core stinks for students, it makes them kind of go a little stir crazy, and it's not really good for students. One of the studies against Common Core might focus on student movement habits. So like how students are not moving in the classroom and gaining weight or not gaining weight. So it might focus on health, right? And using methodologies that focus on health. And then another group of studies might focus on Common Core and how students are learning creative thinking. So you're going to have different methodologies. For the health one, they might take their blood pressure before and after the year or something. For the creative thinking one, they might have them solve a creative problem before and after the year, and see how the method for getting at the evidence is different. So you could organize your